joining Queen's Moves. I know this is something new for me, and it's probably new for you as well. But I believe that this is going to be worth it. I'm excited about the opportunity to share with you some of the lessons that I've learned over the years and shared with mentors and been successful with doing that. So let's get started. I'm going to share my screen and we'll have fun. It's going to be about 45 minutes. All right. So, Queen's Moves is a session that I have been teaching for quite some time, actually. I have been teaching it in a lot of different workshops that I've been asked to guest speak at, and it's gotten rave reviews. So I've taken the opportunity to develop something that would be able to be shared online and possibly put out as a course. So you are the inaugural class. And Queen's Moves is based on the paradigm of chess. Because I'm a strategist, I love strategy. Sun Tzu, The Art of War, is one of my favorite books, but not because it's about war, but it's about how to evaluate landscapes, people, resources, opportunities, knowing the resources you're working with and how to maneuver to achieve a particular objective. I think that is fascinating. But I've come to learn that it's part of people and how we interact. While the art of war is about taking over territory in our lives, there are certain territories or spaces that we need to control. It's like there's a scripture that says that God wants to enlarge your territory. Well, you can't enlarge your territory if you don't know what the territory is and what are the barriers and what's the landscape kind of made up of? Is it wooded? Is it a pasture? Is it mountainous? Is it flat? You want to have territory that you cultivate and bloom into something that is magnificent. Then you have to know what you're working with. And so Queen's Rules is about that. It's not always about winning. It's simply about learning. And we'll talk more about that. But chess is a game that people play for a lifetime because it's always something different, because you're dealing with a different opponent, or there's millions of different options. So every game is an opportunity to learn a different move and move forward in your knowledge base. So Queen's Moves is again about that. So let's get started. Thank you. So welcome to the inaugural session. Thank you so much for being part of this group. It's been a long time coming. I'm excited to share with you. And so I wanted to thank you, take a moment and thank you for being one of the first to be able to participate in this event. So what's the most important thing to me about Queen's Moves is that you realize that you are a queen. Typically, this is for women because we are kind of fraught with so many different mindsets that hinder us, limiting thoughts. But, the queen is an amazing position. Even if you look at it just in life, queens can rule and they can support. Either way, they get a lot of authority and they have a lot of influence, and they have the ability to create environments, whether it's in their supportive role or in their leadership role. There's just something very fabulous about a queen, and you are a queen. You came to this space, this planet, this identity that you have with everything you need to make it. And so there's something very inherently valuable about knowing, accepting, celebrating that you are a queen and you are designed to be that. And what's most valuable about that is that in the chess game specifically, the queen is the most valuable player, the most valuable piece. Excuse me, because of its mobility. The queen has the ability to move across any number of squares, horizontally, diagonally, until it meets an obstacle. And so what does that mean? Until it meets another piece, it can't jump a piece. And so it has to wait in that position until there's not alternative move. But isn't that most powerful and valuable about the way we see the world? We have this inherent ability to adapt, to be creative, to be thoughtful, and thought provoking. I think, if we just look across different scenarios that we found ourselves in over the course of our lives, we have an incredible influence. We have an incredible ability to, again, change with the environment. And so what I'm going to actually talk to you about is leveraging that for your own ability to position yourself for success in whatever you're doing. But most likely, what I like to focus on is workaholic, what can I say? But I decided to leverage that workaholism to be profitable. So, again, a queen's move, right? So one of the other interesting things is that the queen can move until it meets an obstacle. Well, life is full of obstacles. And when you meet the obstacle, it's an opportunity to reset, reevaluate, and position yourself for the next move. Not to be overwhelmed by it. It's just a reality. It's part of life. It happens. So being a queen is really about understanding all the options available to you and being able to sit with them long enough to make your next best move, not be overwhelmed or frustrated or not present and engaged with it. And there's some real power in being confident in the fact that you have the ability to think through what is your next best move. Not all the way down the straight and around the corner, but what is your next best move? The other thing I want to share with you is that the queen is the goal is to control the center of the board in chess, so that there are limited moves that your opponent can make, and those moves you always have kind of thought of a counter that would allow you to continue to move forward in your objective of either taking pieces or controlling the area. So when the queen is in the middle of the board, which people typically wait a little bit to put the queen out into the middle of the board because it's such a powerful piece. But when the queen is in the middle of the board, it has the option to move across the entire space, right? So it has the ability to control and respond to any number of actions. And so there's a space in our lives where we're aligned, we're centered, we're kind of confident and clear. And that's when you have the most options. When you are centered, when you are aligned with your vision, when you're clear about what you're trying to achieve, when you're aware of your surroundings, that's when you have the most options. And so the board changes because people change, right? So you're playing an opponent and they may make a move or you may make a move, but the board changes constantly throughout the game. So when the queen is on the side, it can only move to 21 squares. So that's a less options available by virtue of the position that the queen finds herself in. You'll find in life as well, when you're not necessarily aligned or centered or clear, you'll find that you might find yourself in a restricted kind of space where you don't have as many options, partly because you're not aware, because you're not kind of clear and you're emotionally clouded, or you may have had a barrier that has pushed you. Again, the queen cannot jump over its own piece. So if it's been forced into a particular corner because it can't jump over its own piece or jump over a piece, then it's limited. And is that a permanent state? No, it's really not. It's just about waiting till the moves continue to move until their space is open. So what I'm really hoping to take away from this particular section slide is your position determines your perspective. When you're centered, you can see the entire board. When you're in the corner or on the side, you can only see a particular piece of the board. You don't have as many options. But remember that when you're in a situation, whether you've been blocked from a move or had some barrier come up at work where people are either talking about you or don't recognize your value, or you're just not clear about what you're trying to achieve or what your role is, then you'll find that you'll find that your position determines your perspective, and your perspective may be, this is funky, I don't like it, I don't want to be here. But think about the fact that it may be because of where you're sitting and how you're sitting, what is going on around you, and learn that that is a factor so that you can manage it moving forward. Again, these are just, I'm laying the groundwork and the foundational blocks for what we're going to talk about later. But just recognize that some of the factors for why you believe and are doing what you're doing is because of what your position is, and that can change. The other thing is, like you discussed, the queen can't jump over its own pieces, so it can find that it's blocked from doing some moves, so it's limited. Again, recognize that in life and in your workplace, there are situations which, again, whether your position on the board or the barriers presented by those around you or situations around you, they're not gonna go away. You don't want to not play. The only way there are no barriers is if you're not playing, and you don't want to not play. What's the alternative? Death, seclusion, being a recluse. So barriers are intended to be a part of our life. It's part of the rhythm. It's part of moving and shaking and being. So barriers are intended to inspire creativity, initiative, and strategy. The contrast brings clarity. You can't know that it's blurry vision unless you knew that you had what clear vision was. Or you can't know that, what your goals are not being achieved if you didn't have a vision. I like to say, as a project manager, program manager, problems are job security. You can get overwhelmed, like, oh my God, every day I have to deal with the problem. No, this is so crazy. But at the same time, isn't that what is job security? If I didn't have the problem, what would I be solving? So I just wanted you to consider that this is an opportunity to look at life a little differently. And yes, I'm an idealist, and glass is always half full, but I have found in my experience that that barriers are where we find our most valuable lessons, is when we can get over them and move forward. So before I get into this one, the board on which we play is actually the workplace. And one of the reasons that Queen's Moves kind of birthed and came to fruition and as a philosophy for me personally is because as a young professional in my 30s, because I actually stayed home for 8 years raising my children. I was married around in 21, stayed home for 8 years, and went into the workplace. I was early 30s, 29, 30. And so I was an idealist. I thought, this is amazing. I can finally get out of the house. Get out of the house, I can make moves. I can help people. I can learn new skills. I am going to give 100%. When I gave 100%, I was at Regent University, and I was in an admin position. I got in there through temp, so I was working my way up. I had been moved to 2 or 3 different admin positions, and finally got to support the chief financial officer of the organization. And I loved it. I loved being supportive. I loved being next to decision makers and seeing how they ran things and how the environment worked. And I found myself being an apprentice, right? Not because I asked to be an apprentice, but I took the apprentice approach. And then when I did that, I was unfortunately blocked in one of my promotions. So when I was blocked in that promotion, I stopped being such an idealist. And I started to look at the way the landscape moved. And I say that because I was offered a position as a director of research from an admin position. The position that the gentleman that was my boss at the time said, you should not have that job because you are a woman, you are a mom first, and this job will take you away from that, and you need to focus on that, and I'm not going to support you. I was irate, but I thought, this person's perception of me is becoming an issue for me not being able to move forward. Why does this person have so much authority what am I going to do about it? So I went across the hall to HR. I said, can this person keep me from getting this job? And they said, well, not really if you're qualified and the job was offered to you. So, well, it's not going to stop me. So I went and made the application. I was accepted, never told them, got the job, and then said, hey, I'm going to start a new job in 2 weeks. He didn't have a chance to block because I did it in a way that he wasn't aware that I was going to. I kind of gave him that, well, okay, fine, I understand. But then I still went and did it. But I left him with, I'm going to move in 2 weeks, but I want you to know that I'll be supportive of you. Whatever you need, I'll be able to help you do that in order to make this transition happen. Well, he was irate, but he couldn't stop it. And I learned a valuable lesson. How you present yourself and how people perceive you are important in the process of understanding what options are going to be available to you. Understanding how the process works. So again, knowing HR as an advocate, knowing who to go to ask questions, making sure that the person I was applying with was on the same page and understood the barrier that I was dealing with so that they could block or neutralize that in the process. Like just making that move as smooth as possible without creating tension was a challenge, but it helped me to understand the environment of the influences on promotion. This slide shows that promotions are a complex system of interrelated parts. And this is what I want you to be mindful of as you start to think about where you want to be in your career, where you want to be professionally, where you want to be personally, even in the workplace, how you want to be perceived. What you do may lead you to being noticed for a promotion, but it also then takes on the life of being connected to all these other information pieces. And those information pieces determine what the outcome is going to be. And my intent in this course is to teach you as a queen to influence those informational pieces, those informational carriers, as positively as possible to create as many opportunities for yourself as you can. So the board on which we play in life, it looks more like this murky space of interconnected people and organizations. But we still have to think strategically about how we're going to move through this network in order to get the promotions that we're looking for. So there's the meat of this evening. But today is how do you see yourself? It's really, really important because in order to engage in that space, you have to see yourself as valuable, right? And so there's a couple things we're going to talk about now, but I have to tell you, over the years, I have learned, and I'm not always good at self-confidence and self-esteem are issues that I think most people deal with on some level, but I've had to intentionally work on getting to learn myself and my shortcomings and my strengths in a systematic way. Like I continuously dig in there, especially when I have triggers, so that I can continue to grow and be a consummate student of myself so that I can better engage with people and add more value. So how you see yourself is extremely important. One of the most important things a while, and during the email exchanges, I sent you an assessment on what your core values were. And the reason I did that was because your core values are your drivers. It's what makes you tick. It's what makes you want to do things. It's what lights you up inside. It's when you're tapped into what your core values are. And I say, for example, if family is a core value, then why would you take a position that's going to take you away for 72 hours at a time when you feel it's really important to be present with your family? Well, that makes you uncomfortable. There may be some certain level of uncomfortableness if you find yourself away all the time. And if you didn't know that it was because family is important or free time is important, then you realize that your driver is off. Now, that's not to say that you might not be able to make an adjustment so that your quality time is more intentional so that you can compensate for being away, but it's knowing that family is important to you that makes you change the behaviors so that you can get more satisfaction. So that's why I'm saying that core values are important. And it's not an easy thing to figure out sometimes, because we assume based on society what they should be, but sometimes what our real values are dug a little deeper. And so what I ask is that you kind of dig a little deeper in the assessment, and look for what are these guiding principles that dictate your behavior and help people understand the difference between right and wrong, right? So what's our moral compass is based on our values. And our values were contributed to, were developed through environmental and societal and personal experiences. So organizations have them and people have them. And if your core values don't align with your organization's core values, you can find yourself being relatively stressed or uncomfortable. But if you don't realize where to look to find out where that rub is, it could just be very frustrating. So this exercise, core values, is what I hope revealed some things. It's definitely worth the effort. I've done it a couple of times. Especially, recently while I'm trying to prepare for this class, it was just kind of interesting to note that one of the things that I thought was a core value, which was being supportive, really was in more of a helps value space. And so I realized that being an introvert and playing second fiddle and being supportive doesn't always have to manifest itself as being secretary or admin or behind the scenes, or, so I realized that my value of people is huge. And so I'm going to do whatever I can to make sure I can get the information out to people, to make sure that they're as whole as I can help them to be. And so I would encourage you to take this assessment, go through it, figure out what those real 5 things are that are most valuable to you, and set them aside, because we're going to use those a couple of different ways as we move forward. Just know that those things are important. They're your drivers. They are going to determine whether you're comfortable or uncomfortable, whether you're focused or unfocused. It's an important aspect. The other aspect that we're going to need as we move forward in trying to build this strategy is knowing what your personality type is. Your personality is an expression of your values, or your values tend to find themselves connected to how you show up in the world. And how you show up in the world is kind of framed in what personality type you have. There are many ways in which to understand personality, and this information that you gain about your personality, we're going to consider when developing a leadership development strategy, finding out what the right career is for you, understanding how you interact with other people, knowing what your triggers are. This is important. And I say that for example, I'm a people person, but I don't have a lot of patience for people who aren't really focused. And so I have had to, I'm an idealist, and I'm a dreamer and a visionary. I want to push toward this objective. And if you don't want to go on the bus, I'm like, well, why are you here? So as a manager, I've had to stop and check myself and go, well, everybody's not seeing the world like you see it. So calm down, look at it from what they're looking at, and see how to connect them to the vision instead of being frustrated that they don't see the vision. I wouldn't know that if I hadn't realized that my personality is so idealistic. It doesn't function well when people throw cold water, or realistic. It just makes me feel like you don't get it, you don't want to be on the bus, blah, blah, blah. It's not true. It's a trigger for me. I have to check myself. But once I realize that it's where we are in alignment is where I need to spend most of the time versus where we're not in alignment. And I need to learn how to communicate with people in a way that allows them to see where I'm coming from and help them to collaborate with me versus resist me. And just knowing my values and my personality type have helped me to understand how to work within certain frameworks. And I want to share that with you as a strategy. So in the live session, we got to hear back and forth what people were responding to, or what the conversation was around what they found out and their values and then their personality. But what I can share with you is that I know for a fact that I am a protagonist. And as I was sharing with you, this team builder and a hard worker and overly idealistic, and I struggle with making tough decisions. And this is the Oprah character in the 16 personalities. And I say that it's what's really funny is that I'm very, I guess, charismatic and animated, and I get do all these things, and at the same time, I also struggle with making a strong decision because I'm going to go 100% toward it. So I don't want to make the decision too early, and I don't want to be too exclusive and push people out of the process. And excuse me. So I struggle with that. But knowing that means I have to put a team around me that's going to hold me accountable to making a real decision, move forward, because I won't get caught up in the process and not want to move forward because I don't want to shake the boat too much. Again, just knowing who you are helps you to develop the team and the environment that's going to make you shine. And that there's a certain level of kind of fun and peace that kind of comes with that. I always thought I was introverted. I have now accepted the fact that I'm really not introverted. I get my energy from people, giving to people, and the supportive role that I grew up in really stunted some parts of my development, but I knew I was adding value, so I didn't want to rock the boat. Again, tough decision, right? Didn't want to step out in the front because I knew I was doing well behind, so I just didn't make that decision. And now what you see in this training and moving out into an entrepreneurial space and pushing is me being an extrovert, because I finally decided that what I have is valuable enough to share, and it will help people to move forward. So again, knowing who you are and what you're working with is really important. As I said, that on in the chess space, knowing how the pieces move and how you want to control the tempo of the game makes the game so much more engaging and fun. It's also very intuitive, right? So you have to play the game in your mind before you play the game on the board. But you can't play the game in your mind if you haven't done the assessment to learn what the pieces do and how the board is played and where you need to move. You have to know that in your mind before you play that out in real life. So the chess, what I found when I was doing this research was that there's an app called the Chess Next Move, which is a program that if you can play with the computer basically, and if it shows you how the pieces move by. If you move one piece, it will move another piece for you, and then it will tell you where to move your piece, which allows you to play out scenarios, right? And what's really powerful about this is, again, knowing your values, knowing your personality, learning the environment, learning the people that you're working with, learning the vision that you have, learning all these pieces that are involved in the process help you to make a better strategy and make better decisions about where you need to be and how to communicate what you need to help people to perceive you in a way that helps you to get where you want to be. And that's what Queen's Moves is really, really about, is to know what you're working with, who you're working with, how you're going to work it so that you can achieve your professional destiny. But these tools are really helpful in all areas of life. So I don't know if there's any questions. I am open to email so that you can respond to any one of the emails that you receive with questions. I will be sending this as a part of a package. So again, any questions, I'm available. In this section, we learned about what your inherent value is, that you are a queen because you come to this space, life, with everything you need to make it. And it's just about digging in there and figuring out what you were given, what gifts you were given, what talents, what strengths, what weaknesses, how you were put together to be able to maneuver and leverage the value that you have. We have options. Our board, our life has presented to us several different options on how to engage in life, to position ourselves for the best life and the most successful opportunities, best friends, best moves, and learning how to make your next best move. Not always how do I execute the vision, the full vision. Sometimes in chess, you want to win, but you're really playing move for move, and you're thinking a couple moves out, but it's move, counter move, counter move, counter move, and there's a rhythm to that. So you always have options. Just center yourself in a way that you're aware of all of the options available to you so that you can make your decision based on what your next best move is. The other thing we talked about is that we are our greatest resource. Knowing what we're working with, knowing how to connect to people, knowing how to ask for help, knowing is a great resource, and we bring us with you. You bring you with you wherever you go. So know who you are. So in the next couple of sessions, we'll talk about how to shift into personal strategy development. I'm going to teach you the first move in a series of 3, which is 3P to CI. And what that really is moving through pain, passion, finding your passion, and achieving your purpose through promotion. And that's can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. And then CI is competitive intelligence. And so I want to be able to connect how you can move through those stages with competitive intelligence so that you can frame your assessment of the landscape. You are extraordinary, you're valuable, you have a lot of options available, and what I encourage you to do between now and the next class is to figure out where you want to be, figure out how your values and your personality assessment contribute to what that vision really is, and be clear. Try to get as clear as you can about what you want to achieve in the next 6 months, in the next year, and in what areas. And knowing that is going to help frame how you engage with the content over the next couple of sessions. So thanks so much for joining. I will see you next Thursday. If you want to shout me out, I'll be on Instagram at Queens Moves, on Facebook, Human Connections. And if you do anything on Instagram or Facebook, hashtag Make Queens Moves or just Queens Moves. And if you have a situation that you're dealing with that you would like some clarity on or to work through as we work through this, I'm always available. Go to the website and click on, at the top of the site, it says Let's Get Started, and there's a calendar there. And you can schedule a time for a call or a session or whatever you need. So please feel free to connect with me. I appreciate everything that you have brought to this session, and I hope that you got some amazing takeaways, and I look forward to speaking with you soon. I'm going to we had a great time. Look forward to meeting with you again. You have a fabulous week in between. Look forward to talking to you next session. Take care.